You know, even though they were designed basically as a bass type bait, when fished on a jig in a lot of weed type situations or in river situations, we caught a lot of real nice walleye on them. And it's amazing how this bait that looks so big will produce on walleye the way it does. You know, most people are in tune with fishing a little tiny grub or, you know, a smaller bait like a bucktail, what have you. But this bait, for some reason, the fish just want to kill it. And whether it be the size or the action, doesn't really matter. The thing that does matter is that it works for so many different types of fish and so many different species. Regardless of where you go, it seems to catch everything that swims. There we go. There's a little walleye. Now you take a look at the size of this walleye and the size of the bait, and you can see how that fish inhaled that bait. The bait's half the length of the walleye. So it works on big fish and small fish.
Now, what you want to consider when you're fishing in rivers typically is the fish will tend to accumulate in outside bends typically, where the water tends to scour out the bottom a little bit more, so creating deeper holes. If the current is fast, you want to be on the inside edges because the fish will tend to move across. The water's usually cloudy and the current is not quite as strong. If the current is slower, you tend to want to go into the deeper holes on the outside. A very important thing is to remember that the fish will be facing into the current, so make sure that when you cast upstream of the fish and make the bait go down towards them. If you pull the bait past them, they will pretty well ignore it most of the time.
And what I want to show you here is how they eat this bait. Even though it's a large bait, these walleye, they just keep jumping on it so hard, it's like they try to kill it as opposed to eat it. And they take it so far down, it's amazing.
Pay particular attention to anything that might break the current: rocks, logs, eddies, deeper holes, where the fish can hide and dart out and grab a passing meal. When you're fishing the baits with weight, whether it's a nose weight or a jig, what you want to do is use the lightest weight that you can get away with. The ideal is that you have the bait just ticking over the top of the rocks, but not so heavy that it will get jammed in the rocks.
It just keeps working and working and working on almost every species of fish I've fished for so far. There's typical walleye. Another. Black Mamba Fishing Systems catches fish after fish after fish. And not only do they just hit it, they inhale it.
I don't know if you noticed there, but Rocky had the atomic wedgie that he was catching the walleye with rigged upside down. You see, the front of the baits is shaped like the front of a boat, as I mentioned earlier, and what that does is causes lift. Now, the problem is with current, if you're fishing in current, the current itself will tend to push the bait up and it'll push it outside of the fish's strike zone sometimes. So by turning the bait upside down, what you do is you actually have the shape of the bait act in your favour, because what now happens is the current pushes the bait down. So what you can do is get the bait closer to the fish without having to put extra weight on. And as we all know, is the more weight you put on, the more chance you've got of getting caught in the rocks on the bottom. So that's a very effective way of fishing the baits. And sometimes I actually use that as well as a contrast thing, because the back of the bait is a different colour to the underside of the bait, and sometimes it allows the fish to see the bait easier too.
Okay, go ahead and bring him in. Oh, I don't believe it. Walleye.
Oh, but it's tried to eat.
Pull it out there.